Hey YouTube, it's MIgardener, and I thought I'd show you guys something pretty cool. I talked about it in last episode, and I leaked it a little bit in on my Facebook page if you guys are members on there. But I was recently in a podcast on the Preparedness Radio, and the interview is done by a really nice couple that run the Wisconsin Veggie Gardeners channel, and they have some really cool YouTube videos as well. But they run a podcast station on the Preparedness network. It's like just a podcast station, and they did a Q&A of my channel and kind of the story of how I got started and where things are taking me, and just some quick tips and stuff so you guys can learn some stuff too if you listen. But I will tell you, it is an MP3, so by all means, if you guys get bored, I totally understand. There was lots of people that wanted to see it, and there was also just other reasons that I wanted to show you guys something new, to show you guys what you guys have done, because I really could not have done it without you guys, and I want to extend the biggest thank you absolutely possible. So even if you guys end the video right after this, everything applies right now to you. Yes, you. I cannot thank you enough for all the support you've given me and all of the help you guys have given me. It's really, really nice. And to be frankly honest, it would have never happened if it was not for you. And yes, I'm speaking to you, not you as a YouTube, but you watching. Thank you so much. And I really hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys will learn something, and please, 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 if you have time, click on the links. I'm going to have them posted in a clickable annotation, so make sure you have your annotations turned on, and we're going to have a lot of fun. This is just the beginning. I can feel it, and you guys are going to absolutely love it. So sit back, enjoy, and just, close your eyes and listen to it, because you don't have to watch anything. It's just audio, but I did add some fun clips from ever since I got started to now. So it's kind of like a little mini timeline, and there's some other fun clips added in there too. So hopefully you guys will enjoy, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener podcast on the Preparedness Radio Network. I'm Holly.
And I'm Joey. And this show is dedicated to the average gardener, simple home living, and using what you already have. Now back to the show.
The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener seeks out individuals who are making a difference in the organic gardening world by showing, teaching, and sometimes even constructing devices to help others grow their food easier. Today we're going to be talking to Luke from the MIgardener channel from Michigan. Welcome to the show, Luke.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be on with you.
So, as many of us have our own stories about gardening, how did you start gardening, and where has it taken you at your young age?
Well, that's a really good question. I'd say maybe about 7 years ago, I started gardening. My mom would always kind of get me a tomato plant, being a kid and all. I'd kind of just mess around with a few tomato plants by our garage, and really nothing big. But I was also really intrigued by the way that they kind of gave you fruit and stuff. And then maybe about 4 years ago, I was walking out back, and we had this kind of wooded area, and there was a clearing where the electricity company came in and kind of cleared some spots for the electrical wires. And I looked up and I'm like, well, there's some sunlight here. I wonder if I could kind of clear this out. And it was kind of mossy and not the best soil, but I was young, so I really didn't care. It was just a challenge. So I moved away all the brush and stuff. I made a fence with all the brush, and I tilled it up with just like a shovel, turning over the soil. And I planted some seeds in there, and looking back, it was a total failure. But just the fact that I was able to get a few heads of lettuce and stuff. It was a real confidence builder. I messed with that for a couple of years, and then I noticed that there was a dirty spot by the side of the garage, about 3 or 4 feet by 10 feet, and I tilled that up, and I turned that into a garden, and pretty soon I was growing vegetables just in those 2 spots, and I was so excited at the age I was at. But then about maybe 2 years ago, I was on YouTube, and I was inspired by some people on YouTube growing their own food in raised beds, and that led me to want to do a raised bed garden, and I was so excited about it. But my parents, they don't do a whole lot of gardening vegetable-wise. They do a lot of flowers and stuff, and so I came up with this kind of business proposal. I said, look, I'm going to use this amount of lawn, and I'm going to kind of tear it up, but it's going to look a lot better, I promise. And they're like, oh, they were skeptical. So I built all the raised beds with my own money. I saved up and bought the lumber, built in my hand, and I double dug the soil and put the beds in. And so I guess that leads me to today, where I have probably 11 beds that are about 40 square feet each, and then I have another 1,800 square feet at the cottage that we have too. So yeah, it's been a real journey.
Yeah, for those who haven't seen your YouTube channel, you've got 2 gardens there, and many of us grow things that we like to eat. What are some of the things that you grow in your garden, and why?
Well, we like to stress growing what you like to eat, obviously, because you're going to be the one eating them. Now, from my standpoint, I do a lot of things with my food, so it's not going to be just us enjoying them. So what I like to do is stress exotics. I grow exotic things and also things that produce a lot. We do carrots, we do radishes, but the things that we really, really like to do are things that are heavy-yielding plants, such as eggplants and beans and tomatoes and stuff that you can not only enjoy yourself, but share with other people the flavors that are almost at times too much to even bear. I mean, I have about 500 tomato plants between the house and the cottage, and I'll be harvesting 80, 90 pounds on a regular basis, stuff that no one would ever even be able to eat in 2 years' time. So I'll give it away. I'll also sell it to cover some of my overhead. So yeah, I really like doing the stuff that are exotic and heavy-yielding stuff, just so I can do just that.
Well, that makes sense. Now, do you ever can? I mean, just on a side note, do you ever can or preserve the things you grow?
I don't do a whole lot of canning. Occasionally we'll make stuff like salsa, but I do a ton of freezing. Last year I was just like every day when I bring in beans, we'd have some fresh, but you get so many that, even a stand can't sell as much as you produce, so we'd freeze just quart after quart after quart, and it was like, we had enough to go through all of the winter, and we still have some in the spring, and then, I planted them again, so it's just kind of one of those constant cycles that it's really great to be able to freeze and can, even though we don't do a whole lot of canning. I wouldn't mind getting into it, but as of now, yeah, we're totally fine just freezing anything else.
Now, you said you've got 500 tomato plants. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started all of these from seeds. You didn't buy these from starts, is that correct?
Oh, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, no, I haven't bought tomato plants, I don't think, in, I came in 7 years ago, 6 years ago. I started all mine from seed ever since I can remember. I like the fact that you know how they've been grown from seed to table, and it's a real confidence booster as well, because at times the days seem so stressful, but when you look at such a minuscule accomplishment, it's amazing how much it can actually boost your self-esteem. Being in high school and stuff, a lot of times there'd be stuff that would get me down, and I would just I would go back to the garden and be like, wow, I've done so much with my life. Like, look at what I've done that most people can't seem to do in years of experience, and I just somehow I marvel at the smallest things, but I guess that's why I can't stand to buy a plant that's already been started. I like the satisfaction of completing a project from beginning to end.
Well, that makes sense. And on that note, since you're talking about being in high school, does being young ever affect your credibility?
Quite a bit, actually. It's kind of mixed, but you'd be surprised how many people actually give me issues and problems for being so young. Like, the information I give out on my YouTube channel is nothing that a rocket scientist has to figure out. It's just, I think a lot of people have problems, whether or not it's jealousy, I don't know, but a lot of people have problems just taking advice and kind of taking it to heart is the fact that I'm trying to help them out. They look at it the fact that I'm trying to, show off, and it's not that at all. But they look at my age and are just like, this kid, there's no way an 18-year-old is going to give me advice. And I think those are the people that don't really benefit as much. I think having a humble and open mind about things is the key to success when it comes to learning, because everything that I've learned, I had to just accept that it was the way things were. I mean, when I started out with nothing, I watched people and thought, geez, like, this is either too much or too good to be true. and that sure enough, I followed what they were saying, I implemented stuff, and I was surprised with the results. I was really surprised that having an open mind and not thinking that you know everything can lead to so much success, and it really has. So I think being young does affect my credibility, but I think also in time, once people see results and see the fact that I'm not trying to just show off, that I'm actually trying to help them as a gardener grow more food for themselves, I think that my credibility will be increased tremendously.
Right, well, definitely. And I think that, to be honest, I think it's quite inspiring, not only for generations behind you, but, generations older than you, to see somebody, your age who's interested in gardening, interested in sustainability and growing their own food. And it sounds like, you give some of that food away, which is even nicer. So I think it also restores hope in people, older people, it restores hope in younger people, knowing that there's not just a bunch of punk kids around. There are people out there doing something with their talents and their interest. Now, are your parents more into it now that, you've come this far, or are they still kind of taken aback by it?
No, they are actually, I'm amazed because my dad won't do all the tomatoes that I grow. He's not a big tomato fan. He likes it in like a salsa or whatever. But I was amazed at the fact that both of my parents have done a complete 180 when it comes to the way I grow things, because they would look at, when I first did my raised beds, I practiced using homemade compost and rabbit droppings, the only things that I had accessible with a 16-year-old's budget, very little accessible money. So I used what I had, and they, at first they were like, oh my gosh, nuh-uh, I'm not going to eat those tomatoes that were grown in rabbit droppings. And I sat down and explained with them. I said, no, you have to trust me. Like, what's in the soil does not come up into the fruit. It's not, they're two completely separate things. They don't take up like species into the plant and the fruit, It's a hard thing for people to grasp, and I have been so impressed the fact that they took that step, and now they literally do not like going to the store, and when it's in the off season and there's certain things that we don't have frozen, such as like corn or lettuce or spinach, those things, when we have a salad that comes from the store, they're just like, oh man, like I miss your stuff. And it's not only inspiring for me to keep doing it, but it's very cool the fact that I've finally gotten them on board with the fact that, no, like, we're not crazy what we do. It might seem crazy, it might seem extreme, but when you taste the flavors and the fact that you don't even have to go to the store, you literally can just walk outside in your pajamas and harvest stuff, it's the best feeling, and it's the best sight to see a whole family get in together on it and really kind of join in and enjoy the harvest instead of just having it be one person enjoying something because they're used to it. And I think that's really one of the coolest things that I've gotten out of gardening for a family instead of just gardening for myself, is the fact that you can take, 3 or 4 people in a family that never eat vegetables from the store because that's the way they were brought up, is that vegetables come from the grocery store, and you transform them into people that hate going to the grocery store to buy produce because it's nothing like what the stuff you grow tastes. It's awesome. It's unlike anything I ever could have imagined.
Right, yeah. We completely understand here. We obviously grow a huge garden ourselves, and it's definitely, I think it's worth the time and the effort. Well, aside from, it sounds like you have a good idea of what you're doing, but what are some of your methods of success? What's something that you can share with others that have made you successful in the garden?
Yeah, the one thing, if I can say anything at all, the one thing that I practice that has always been really good for me is always giving back to the soil. At the end of the season, I like to not necessarily like thank the soil, but I like to thank the ground for the harvest that it's given me and kind of prepare it for the next year. So I'll provide the nutrients, whether it's through compost or manure or just putting some mulch over the top to kind of break down. I like to give nutrients back to the soil that I took out so that next year when I plant, I won't have to worry about nutrient deficiencies, and I can rely that the soil's going to give me the same tasting vegetables that I got this year. It's just a practice. It takes a little bit more effort. A lot of people don't like to put in the effort, but once you get into the habit of just throwing your food scraps into a compost pile and just letting it sit throughout the summer and then turning it once or twice and throwing it in the garden in the fall, and then that's really all it takes. A lot of people make it a lot more effort. They like to just plant a plant, throw in some Miracle-Gro, and say, you know what, it's going to grow itself. And that's just not how it works. I mean, I've done both. I've done the Miracle-Gro thing when I was a kid, and I was naive of the flavor differences. But once you get older and you realize that that's just one of those things that you have to do is give back to the soil in order for it to give back to you, it makes it so much easier. And also, I'm really fond of using a little bit more than the garden needs, so there's some left over. It's kind of my way of thinking. When you leave someone's house as a guest, you should leave it better than the way you left it, than the way you came. And so when I put in my compost and stuff, I'll also put in some bone meal and some blood meal, some stuff that are very nutrient rich. So when I plant plants, there will be a little bit left over, and that way over time it builds up, and that way you never have to worry about ever running your soil completely dry of nutrients, because I think that's a big problem nowadays, is that people just don't comprehend how much nutrients they take out of the soil, that in a couple years they wonder why their plants are dead and not getting any nutrient-rich foods and very flavorful foods, and it's just because simply they don't ever give back to their soil. And so once you get to that practice of just giving back and putting stuff back in the soil, you're going to find that it's a world of a difference, whether it's ease of gardening or just the flavor of the vegetables. It's 100% night and day difference.
Absolutely. You've got to replenish the soil in order to get food back out of it in the coming years. Now let's backtrack a little bit. You mentioned that you have over 500 tomatoes in the 2 gardens. For our listeners, that might be an astronomical number of tomatoes. What made you go to that high of a number of tomato plants to plant for your 2 gardens?
Well, my motto for my channel is grow big or go home. For a lot of people, it seems ridiculous to plant 500 tomato plants, but when you get the varieties, like I had so many varieties, and I saw this space at my cottage, and I'm like, you know what? I want to grow a garden here. It gets great sun, and what's like the best thing that I can grow that's low maintenance, that it provides more food than I can handle, and instantly the light bulb went in my head, and I said, you know what? It's got to be the tomato. And I prepared it exactly like how I do before. I prepped it the year before. I gave it everything that needed to grow. I tilled it up in the spring, and I planted my seeds under compact fluorescent lights in about mid-February, like we were talking earlier, and I had about 1,000 plants. And then through kind of selective choosing, I selected the strongest of those plants. And the reason I chose 500 is because that was like the most I could possibly grow. And I like to challenge myself. Through my motto, grow big or go home, and the fact that I'm just a naturally driven person to fulfill a challenge, I thought, you know what, how cool would it be, instead of just having a garden, because I grow everything else, how cool would it be to have a tomato patch? Because I've always been intrigued by just how how they do it on a farm, because when you see it in large scale, it's just unfathomable amounts of tomatoes. And I kind of wanted to experience that for myself and kind of stick my foot in the door and kind of get my feet wet for the experience of what is it like to have more than 5 or 6 tomato plants. And it's kind of just for fun, kind of for a challenge. Also, I run my tomato stand. I have a tomato stand out that anything we can't give away or can't eat ourselves or can't freeze, we give away or we sell at the tomato stand. And so with all things combined, there was without a shadow of a doubt in my mind that tomatoes was the best thing to put there. And it's been so much fun so far. It's came out better than I could have ever expected, and then some. I mean, it's every single time I go up there, it just amazes me just how awesome it started from a vision of having a tomato patch to really actually having a tomato patch that's giving me 80, 90 pounds of tomatoes every single time I harvest. It's just incredible.
That is just a massive amount of tomatoes. For those who haven't seen your YouTube channel, you've got quite a few followers or the subscribers. What steps have you taken to reach out, to contact and to reach more people to show and teach them how to grow their own food?
Well, that's actually a really good question. The steps that I'm currently taking, I obviously have my Facebook page. and that's Gardeners R Us, and people can go on there. And I made that to kind of just give an alternate route for people to contact me with questions, because I know sometimes messages will get lost in translation with YouTube and just the overwhelming number. So I not only have my YouTube channel, but I also have my Facebook, and I'm currently working on actually getting a Twitter as well, and that's just now in the process, because I want to take over all the realms of social media, because I truly think social media is one of the best ways to reach people, obviously, because there's no possible way I could, tour around the country and speak to people in person, even though that's cool. It's just not reasonable. So those are the things that I'm doing currently. But then I also do stuff such as I've done a fundraiser for cancer research. I've done that at my school, where I gave out tomato plants and other vegetable plants for people, for the teachers and staff. So then they would come and I would say, hey, check out my YouTube channel, and I would also kind of give them some tips. And then I also run my tomato stand, and when people stop, they say, who's MIgardener? Because that's the name of the produce stand, is MIgardener Produce. And I'll say, check me out on YouTube. If you have any questions, you can see there. So I'm lassoing every possible person, because I truly think that the best way to taste, your own garden-grown produce is to grow them yourself. I mean, and so it's like you can't expect people to just have knowledge pop in their head. I mean, I got it from YouTube so that I could learn to grow my own produce, and it's just kind of my way of giving back to the community information-wise, not only produce-wise, but now I give back information-wise through just hundreds of ways. I mean, I have so many ideas in my head that I can't even fulfill them all, but just things like speaking at our local library. I'd love to do that, and I'd love the opportunity sometime. And like the opportunity you're giving me now to speak on your podcast, it's great. It's an awesome opportunity to speak out to the community and tell them it's not hard to grow your produce, but you have to get a hold of the information and just have a humble heart and know that I'm helping people, not showing off. And when you get a hold of that information, take it to heart. I'm more than out there. I mean, with 3 social media sites and around the town, I'm more than out there. So to say that my information's not out there for free and for people to take is just nonsense. So.
Very true. Free information. Everybody should take advantage of it. You've got a great resource, a great channel, and with it, a lot of good, accurate information when growing your tomatoes and other vegetables that you grow on the show, on your channel.
So why don't you tell us again, just real briefly, how more people can find you and find your videos and your information? Just give us the information so others can look you up.
Okay, well, my Facebook page is obviously www.facebook.com/MIgardener, or you can just type in on the search bar Gardeners R Us, and that's what will come up is my MIgardener YouTube extension. Or you can find me on YouTube at www.youtube.com/MIgardener, or again, just in the search bar type in MIgardener, and I'm one of the only ones that has that username. So you're going to find my videos. I got over 150 now, I think. So I'm definitely out there for people to see. You can shoot me a message, shoot me an email, leave a comment, check out the page, and I'd be glad to help anyone out that's listening. I'd absolutely love to help people out. It's what I love doing because, like I said, it's just a way of giving back, which really makes me happy.
All right, great. And we'll put that information on the show notes of the podcast as well. Is there any, quick tips that you want to give anybody out there out there in the gardening world?
Well, there's always time for a quick tip. I'd say the best thing to do when you take information in, don't take information in as a whole because it can kind of be really overwhelming. Start small. Start with just baby steps. If you've never gardened before, if you're interested in gardening, start really small. Start out on a patio. Start out like I did with just a 10-foot by 4-foot area. It makes it a lot easier, and it really it limits the chance for failure. And I think that's kind of one of the things that leads people to run away. Just the fact that they start out so big with so many high expectations, and if there's the smallest failure, they're so quick to turn away and just say, that's not worth the time I put into it, and then they just kind of shove it away, kind of put it underneath the bed, and it gets so dusty that they never pull it out again. And it's really sad because I've seen so many people do that. I've seen so much of that it saddens me to know that I have the information out there, but it's just the fact that people start out way too big, and they just need to get their feet wet first. And for people that are experienced gardeners, they've been doing it for a while, take additional information. I would say that'd be a big thing, because even now, having all my information, knowing everything, going to college for botany and horticulture, doing all of that, I am never too smart to take in more information. And that was one of the things that my dad always taught me, was that you're never too smart to learn something. And that's I've always taken that kind of point of view with gardening. It's the fact there's always something that you can learn, and those little things are the things that can increase your harvest just even 10%. And when you look at 10%, when you're talking about 500 tomato plants, that's a huge amount. So it's always smart to start small, get your feet wet, and always keep an open mind, and just know that the resources out there are there to help you, and you can take what you want, or leave what you don't want to listen to behind, and that's your consequences for what you do. But I can promise everyone out there that if you just listen to one thing at all, it's that you just have an open mind, because without that, there's no chance for progress.
Well, thank you, Luke, and we thank you for your information. And again, we're gonna put your information on our website and on the show notes.
That's right. We'll put his information on our website. It's WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, and on the right-hand side, we'll have a category there for podcast guests. Just click on that, and we'll have the link for his YouTube channel, and I believe as well his Facebook page. It's amazing at the age of 18 that this young man plants 500 tomatoes in his garden.
Right, and I just love how he has such an enthusiasm at such a young age, and how his parents at first weren't really interested in him, and he got them involved, and it sounds like, he's trying to make an effort in his community as well.
Yeah, and not only just food for his family, but food for those who are in need, as well as selling it to others who can't grow their own food for whatever reason.
Right, so that was very inspiring. We really hope that you enjoyed listening to our podcast today.
We want to thank Luke as our guest, and as we always say here at the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener, whether podcast or video, take a child gardening and start growing some memories.